Okay, so we have our basic shell here, and what we're going to do is we're going to start with Notepad as well, so we can talk about the pseudocode, like the thought process behind what we're doing. So you can type this or you can do it in your head, but we should kind of think about what we're trying to do. So if we are in this program, what we're going to do is we're going to calculate if we give it an age, how many dog years that would be. So it should be a pretty simple program. So if you don't know, the dog years is like there's 7 years for every year we have. So we would say something like enter age, and then we would put like age times 7 as the calculation, then print dog years. Something like that, just to kind of get what are we trying to do. So we're trying to get input, do the calculation, and then print the answer. So just so we don't forget, I know it's a very simple program, so maybe be able to just do that in your head. And then when we're doing this, then we can come back over here and we can start with our basic shell. And of course, go ahead and write your name at the top. And then today's date is the 16th. And then you can put something like calculate dog years, just something very short and sweet. Tells us what the program does. Okay, so I put the namespace up here so I don't for C in and C out. I don't have to do the STD, but it's up to you if you want to do that or not. But what I need to do is if I'm going to ask them for their age, I'm going to take in an age. I need to have a variable to save age into. And so I'm going to create an age variable, and age typically is integer because we don't give decimal numbers for age usually. So we'll do int age. And then we're going to ask the user for their age. So we're going to do a cout statement. And say something like, what is your age? Or enter your age. And then you need to take in data from the user, you need to do a cin. So we're going to do a cin, make the arrows go the opposite way. And then make sure you go ahead and just put that age variable that you declared up there. Okay. Okay. And then we're going to do, we're going to create a variable for dog years. You can put the dog years variable up there with your other age variable, or you can put it just right on the line where you want to do the calculation. So we're going to say int dog years, and I'm just going to make it one word. So dog lowercase and then years with a capital Y. And then we're going to do equals whatever the age is that you took in times 7, because we multiply it times 7 to get the dog years. And then we're going to print that out. So we're going to do a cout. Oops, wrong way. I'm going to say something like you are, just to kind of practice, you are. And then space, and then you want to do dog years. And dog years. Okay. And you just end that. I don't have anything else. I don't need to do an end unless you want to. So I should be able to run that. And I should be able to enter my age. I'm just gonna make up an age here, right? I'm 31, right? And then you'll say how many dog years you are. You can just put in whatever age you want and just see if it multiplied it times 7. And then try it again and try a different age. And see if it's working. Okay, so pretty simple program, hopefully just takes some basic data, does a very simple calculation and output. Is everybody following? Easy. Okay, if you want to save this, you can go ahead and, just highlight everything, Control A if you want, and then paste over here for your code. And then you're not turning this in, so if you want to do your output over here, you can. But you know if you ran it and tested it. So if you want to print the output examples, you can then save it for later. But whatever you want to have as an example for you to look at for later. If you don't need the pseudocode, if you want it, it's up to you, really. Does anybody have any questions? Simple? Okay. All right, let's do one that's a little more advanced. Okay. So we're gonna keep the return. I'm just gonna delete everything in there. And then I'm also gonna keep my comments here. This one I'm gonna calculate area and perimeter. So then if I'm thinking about the pseudocode over here, I'm trying to figure out what do you need from them. So I would like input the length rectangle and input the width, or maybe you want to say input rectangle width, but rectangle, however you want to word that. I'm gonna put the word of in there. It's bothering me. Okay. And again, this is just the English version of what you're trying to do. So you're trying to remember, don't forget to do this, don't forget to do this. Okay. And then the calculation that you want to do. So in order to calculate the perimeter, we would do the 2 times, and then we do length plus width. So I'm gonna put a little bit bigger. Okay. And I know Notepad doesn't like my calculations and spellings and things, and that's one thing that's irritating with Notepad is it edits everything. But, and then area equals length times width. And then we just want to print the area and perimeter. So print area, print perimeter. Okay. That makes sense? Everybody good? Okay, so whatever way you want to write that down as notes for you so you don't forget to do a calculation if you need to look up a calculation and so you know what you want to print. Okay, so we can go back over here, and in order to input the length of the rectangle, you need to have a variable to save that into, and I'm going to need a variable for the width of the rectangle. So I can just simply call it length and width, right? You could call it L and W, that also works. I mean, that's pretty common that people know what L and W is, so that would also work. So we could do int length, and then you can just do comma width. Okay, because they're both integers. We could do it with a comma. If you want to use L and W, that's also okay. And then we can go ahead and always make sure you ask the question and then take in the data, because if you just take in the data, you'll just have a blinking cursor down there, and then the person doesn't know what they're supposed to be typing. So always make sure you do a CL statement that tells them what they're supposed to be entering. So that, and then you would say input, or you could say, what is the length of the rectangle, or enter the length of the rectangle. However you want to word that. To tell them what they're supposed to be doing, and then do the CIN and use your length variable. And then you want to repeat and do the same thing for the width. So we want to do a CIN. And do, if you called it length written out, make sure you do that. If you called it L, use L. And then do the same thing for the width. The out. Enter the width of the rectangle. And then do your CIN to take in the width. And if you use W, go ahead and use that if you wrote it out. stick with that. You can test it at this point if you want, just to make sure you don't have any errors. I know sometimes I wait till the end because I think everything's okay, but then some people get overwhelmed because you have a bunch of errors because you haven't been testing it. So even though I don't have the calculation in there, sometimes it's nice just to run it to make sure you don't have any errors. Because one bad thing about online GDB is it doesn't really tell you if you have errors until you try to run it. And so sometimes running it like after you do a step or two is a good idea because then you don't end up with 10 errors and get frustrated at the end. So we just make sure that that part is working so far. And then we need to move on to the calculations. Always make sure you do your calculations before you do the output. If you try to do the output, you'll get some garbage for the area and perimeter. It's because it hasn't done it yet. And actually, if you're declaring it at the same time, see, one of the things is if you just add them up here, area, perimeter, and you can just do A and P if you want to. If you do them up here, it actually just pulls whatever random garbage that has in memory. It is very like just garbage from memory that it pulls. And so if you were to print out like area and perimeter right now, let me show you. You'll just put some garbage in there, it like won't tell you there's a problem and you'll just get some weird answer. Because if I do like a C out and I try to say I wouldn't just say area. I can write it as a sentence, I guess. The area of the rectangle is, or you could just say is. And then I want to do area, and then I'll do perimeter, and I just want to show you. Put a space there. Okay, now I'm going to put an end out here. If I get a separate line, I don't need one there because it's the end, but I could do it just to stay consistent. So it's really up to you if you want that or not. Make this a little bit smaller. Okay. Can you read that if I make it that size? Okay. All right, so if I run this, it's still gonna, ask me the length, right? And the width. And actually picking 0 right now. But I didn't do the calculation, but sometimes you will get garbage in there if you just let it pick what's gonna be in there. So sometimes it's 0, sometimes it's garbage, but the reason why it's that is because I never did the calculation, right? And so I need to do the calculation because that is one thing about the difference between like C++ and Java. If you try to do that in Java, it would tell you you have a syntax error because you tried to print something that never had a value. But C++ just pulls whatever value. And so sometimes it will be 0, but it won't always be 0. So let's do our equation. So we can do area first if you want to. I already declared area up there, so I don't need to declare it down here. Or you could declare it down here and take it off up there, but don't do both. So area equals, and we're just gonna do length times width, whatever you did for length, just keep with the same name, and width. And then perimeter, whatever name you use for perimeter. And then you can just do 2 times length plus width. Whatever you use for the names. Okay. And then make sure you put length plus width in parentheses so it adds them together and then multiply those times 2. Because otherwise it'll multiply 2 times length, then add the width on because of the order operations. So just make sure because you'll get a different answer if you do it that way. So we'll do this and then we'll multiply it by 2. We could do length plus width, right? But we'll do all that. Okay. All right, now if we run it, we should hopefully get the right answer. So you can enter whatever you want for the length and the width, and you should get something that's reasonable for the area and perimeter. And then run it again and do a different number for length and width. If you want to do doubles instead of 8, you can also do that. And change it to doubles. Okay. Are you all okay with the order operations here? Is everybody okay with working? Okay, so if it's working, and it makes sense to you, you can go ahead and paste that in here and save it if you want to have that for later as an example. And then we'll do another program together, and I want to do one that actually has like precision. So does anybody have any questions about this one though, first? Seem to be working? Okay, perfect. Then if you want to go ahead and erase that, if you already saved it, go ahead and take this out. And we'll set this up for, we're gonna calculate a loan amount. And so you can get another tab if you want. You can do the same thing, pseudo code. Actually, we're gonna do calculate interest. Sorry. We're gonna have the amount you want to take out for the loan, the rate, and the number of years you want to take it out, and then we're gonna calculate simple interest. Okay. So we need to get those three pieces of data from the user. We need to know the loan amount, the years, and the rate. So we are gonna say something like input loan amount, input interest rate, input number of years or years. So you have to get those three pieces of data. And then we need to think about what calculations we would have. So in order to calculate interest, I'm just gonna put on here interest equals. I'm gonna do loan times the rate times the years. Now, it depends on how you're entering rate. If you decide you want to enter rate as an integer number and you want to divide it by 100 to make it a decimal, so like, do you want to enter it as like 0.05 or do you want to enter it as 5% and then calculate what that would be in decimal terms? We need it to be a decimal number. So if you think it makes sense to enter as a decimal, then that's a simple equation like that. But if you want to enter as integer, then this becomes divided by 100, like you would put it in parentheses and divided by 100. So it really just depends on how you're entering the data. And maybe when you're telling them what to enter, you can tell them as a decimal or as an integer, based on which one you do. So we could take, switch it back and forth so you can see the difference. And then really what we want to do is just print the interest. Okay, ready? Got what we're trying to do? Okay, so I changed my comments up here to say we're calculating interest. And then I'm gonna work on getting those three pieces of information, the loan amount, the interest rate, and the years. And so I'm gonna need a variable for each of those. You can do L, I, and Y if you want to. Actually, don't do I, because that would be interest. Do R for rate, maybe. You could do like L, R, and Y, and then you could do I for interest. Or you can write it out like loan, rate, and years, whichever works for you. Just so you know what they are. And these are gonna be doubles because you're gonna be working, we're trying to get a monetary amount, so we do wanna have the precision in there. So we wanna get a double to be as precise as possible. We're talking about monetary amount. So double, and again, if you wanna write out the word loan, you can, or you can just do L. And then if you wanna write out the word rate, or you can do R. And then if you wanna write out years, or you could do Y. But I need three variables. They're all gonna be doubles because I am gonna do rate as a double right now. I could switch that later. And then years, same thing, because if you want to do like a half a year or something, although you take it out for an integer number of years, not like a half a year. But we can leave that as a double in case you do want to do decimal. Okay, so then we need to ask the user for those three pieces of information. So we're gonna do a cout. We always have to ask or tell them what they're trying to type in. So enter loan amount, something like that. And then go ahead and do cin and use your loan variable. If you called it L or you called it loan, make sure you stick with that. Okay, and then go ahead and do the interest rate. This is one where you need to be descriptive and say enter it as a decimal. And then maybe give an example. They'll say something like, enter the interest rate as a decimal. And then you can say example. Like that. And then you want to do a CN and take in the rate if you called it rate or you called it R. Make sure you use whatever you called it. And then the number of years. And again, if you want to change years to be an integer, if that's bothering you, you could do that. If you don't want it to be, normally you have to take it out for a number of years, not like half a year. Although you can, let's finish early, but okay. So enter the number of years. Okay. And then CN years. Okay. And again, you won't really know if there's errors unless you run it. So if you do want to run it to test to see if everything seems to be working. Just enter whatever numbers you want to. It should let you enter decimals since we did double. Okay, so it looks like I don't have any errors so far. So then I can continue. And I want to do my calculation, but problem is I don't have a variable called interest right now. So I have to decide I could call it I or I could call it interest. But I can put it up here with my other variable, or I can declare it down there. It's really up to you which you want to do. But you do want it to be a double, so that you get the monetary amount. So you do get the decimal number. Okay, so do make sure it's a double. And because all the other variables are double, you could just add it right here if you want to. So you could just put interest if you want. But then make sure you don't declare it down below. You just say interest equals, and then you can put your equation. And using whatever variables you declared above, make sure you use the same ones. So if you abbreviated it, stick with those. So then we would do interest, whatever you named it, oops, equals. And remember spacing like after the equals and before it and between like your operators, like your multiplication signs. You can put a space if you want to. It doesn't matter. If you like it for readability, that's fine. If you don't like it, you can jam it all together. It's really up to you. So I could do loan times and I can be putting spaces there, or I could just push them together. Times rate times years. And then I want to print the interest. And then it's not really necessary to reprint everything else since you already entered that data and it's already going to be on the screen. Otherwise, if it were in like a, sometimes we do like message boxes or something that pops up. If we couldn't remember what it was, we had to print it, but it's already on the screen, so you don't need to print it again. I don't think so. You can do see out, and you can say interest. I do like you to put a label though of what the answer is. So say something like interest is or interest equals something like that, and then put your interest variable. Okay. And then see, you can make up whatever numbers you want. So do a loan for 15,000 at 4% for 10 years. And then that's how much you're going to pay in interest. A lot. And then you can run it again and do different numbers and see if it seems to be working. Just test it. But if you didn't like this, like if you don't think you should enter it like that, if you don't like the way that looks and you want to just do like 4 for 4% or 4.5, Doesn't really work for decimal, but you could just multiply it times, you would just divide it by 100 if you wanted to do like 4, or 4.5. Then you can leave it a double if you do want to do decimals. So like, if you don't like it as written like that, then just divide it by 100 in your equation. But you have to be specific. So when you give directions here, give an example of what you're talking about. So say example 4.5 percent, and then that way they know they enter it like that, and then that way, because if you divide it and they enter it like that, then that wouldn't work, right? So pick one way or the other. If you want it to be, if you don't like it like this, then in your equation, you would just actually put in parentheses rate divided by 100, and that would fix that problem. But when you do, if you leave rate a double, you're good, because then you would have a double and you would have you would have 100, which is an integer, and you'll be okay. But if you change rate to be an integer, then you can't do like 4.5, first of all, but then you also are gonna have trouble with integer division. So you'll have to do like casting to fix it, or you'll have to switch the data type back to double. So you do have to worry about that. So that's one of the problems with doing like an integer. But same problem if you do want to do like 4.5 or something like that percent instead of just 4. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Y'all following okay? Okay, so it's up to you if you like it like this, you can leave it. What I want you to try to do to see how well it's making sense is I know we talked about like doing precision and everything. I want you to try to format that number. So like I have 6,000. I wanted to have a dollar sign, which you can actually just add the dollar sign. But I wanted to have 2 decimal places. So do your formatting, see if you can remember if you can look up a previous exercise or something, just for practice. See if you can do the formatting to have 2 decimal places and a dollar sign. And then I'll talk to you about it, make sure everybody's okay with it. I'll give you just like a couple minutes to think about that, trying to add that, and then we'll talk about it. All right, so to add it, you do want to add a preprocessor at the top. And again, if you leave that out, I think online GDB will let you know that. But it's include and it's IO mana in order to do formatting. And then you can just put here set precision 2 if you want 2 decimal places, because if you're doing monetary, 2 makes sense. And then of course you do want to use fixed for this. I know I said it, you can use show point or fixed, but show point depends on how many integers as well. So then it wouldn't give you the 2 decimal places. So fixed will give you the 2 decimal places. And then if you do want the dollar sign, you can just actually add that in your string. Put that in there. And then if I do it, I can do like a loan amount that also includes change if you want to. I mean, normally we just do like whole number, but do something. And then we'll do, oops. And then how many years? Say 18 years. Okay. All right. So if you want to copy this in, you can save it and have it for later. Oops. Go back to my online GP, sorry. I want to do another program with you to have, and if you want to save all these examples so you have them to work from, you can use them on your checkpoints. But we're going to do another one. This one's going to use a random number. So if you want to clear it out again, once you have it saved, then we can open up a new tab. This one is going to, we'll say, addition program. It's not going to be as exciting as it can be in the future. We can do a more exciting one in the future. But basically, we're going to give them an addition problem. Unfortunately, we can't tell them if they're correct or incorrect because we don't have the decision making to be able to do that at this point, but we will later. So we can just tell them what the answer is, and they'll have to determine if they're correct or incorrect. So, okay. So what we can do is try to figure out what we're trying to do here. And in the future, we can make this more exciting by telling them if they're correct or incorrect. But right now we're going to ask them, actually, we're going to have a random number generated, two random numbers generated, because we're going to give them a random equation basically to solve. So we have to decide when we want the random number to be generated, what number do we want it to generate through, like 1 through 10 or 1 through 100? What would you like to do? And then, probably the same for the second number. And then we're going to ask them when we add those together, what number we get. And we can calculate the right answer and tell them what the correct answer is. Now we can't tell them if they're correct or incorrect. We'll just let them figure that out based on what they entered. We could tell them what their answer was and what the correct answer was, but we can't compare it because we don't have that ability to do that yet, but we will in the future. So we want to do a random number. So basically we could put like random number 1 through 10, and then we can change it to 1 through 100 if you want. And then we need another random number. We can put this as random number 1 and random number 2, 1 through 10. So we're going to generate two random numbers, 1 through 10. Okay. Then we're going to figure out the answer. So, well, actually, we'll display the equation. So display equation with random numbers. So I want to take those, I want to display, if I add those together, what would it be? Okay. And then I'll have the user enter their answer. Input answer. Right. And then I actually want to figure out what the right answer is. Okay. So we want to say like answer equals, and take num1 plus num2. Just because we're doing addition, but we could do any operator here if you want. Okay. And then I want to display whatever they chose as their answer and then what the right answer is. I want to display both. So display user answer, display correct answer. Now they're entering it above, so technically if you don't want to write that, but you could write it more as paragraph form, like you answered this and it really was this. And they can compare if they got it right or not. So however you want to word it is fine. But something like that, does that make sense to everybody what we're trying to do? And I told you the other day that there's two ways to do random numbers, and I showed you the way that I liked the other day, and I want to show you the way that your book has. I think the way your book has is more complicated, but if you decide you like that, you can use that. If you want to use the way that I showed you the other day, that's fine. I'll go back and show you the way that I had the other day too, so you can compare which way you like better. I think the way your book has just has more steps, and so really you get to decide. Okay, so I don't need the formatter right now, the IO mana header, so I'm going to take that out. But I am going to include a header called random. So I'm going to do include, and then there's one called random. So this one's used for the one in your book. I don't use this one too often. Okay. This is different from what we did the other day. Okay, because I don't really use this one that often. Okay. So in main, if y'all put random in there, then what we can do is, this looks weird, but we're gonna say random underscore device. And then we're gonna call it my engine. And then you have to pick what type of distribution you want. Do you want like integers or doubles or, okay. So we're gonna do uniform and then underscore int distribution. And then you're gonna put in the less than and then int and then the greater than random int. And then you have to put your range. So if you want 0 through 10, you put 0, 10. If you want 0 through 100. Now, if you don't want 0, you can do 1. Do 1 through 10. So that's what I put over here. So we'll just say 1 through 10. Once you set that up, then you can go ahead and use it as many times as you want to, as long as you want to do the same thing, like the same range. So if I want to do two numbers, I could call them num1 and num2, for example. And they're both going to be integers, so I will do like int num1 equals, and then it will say random int or whatever you call it, random int. And then you have to use the engine up here, my engine. So make sure you do the same capitalization and everything. And then do the same thing for the second number. Let's call it num2. So if you want to copy and paste, you can. This would be the same. That gives you two integers, 1 through 10. I like this way, but if you like that, you know, I don't know. So the book, like, we've been using Gaddis for a while. He used to use the way that I had, and then he went to this. I'm not sure what made him switch, but I think this is more complicated, but y'all get to pick what works for you. You know, you'll have both examples. So, all right, so that should get you two random numbers, but want to make sure that it works and we're getting the right range. So let's just do a cout, and let's just print num1. And I'll do an endl, and then I'll do num2 as well. I want to just test it. Like, I'm not printing it for the user to look at the output, so that's why I'm not putting a label or anything. I'll know that that's num1 and num2, and I just want to make sure that it's within 1 through 10 range when it prints two numbers, because otherwise it's not working. So I got 5 and 10, so it seems to be working, but let me do it a couple times and make sure I don't get anything out of range. So 6 and 2, 4 and 8, 4 and 7. It looks like it's working, right? Do it a couple times to make sure it works. Did y'all get numbers 1 through 10? Perfect. Okay. So we got two numbers. Now we know it's working. Always test it, make sure it's working, right? So now we did this part, right? And we tested it to make sure it works. So now we want to display the equation with the random numbers. Now that we know that they work, and we know we kind of have it going here. So I really just want to do num1. I want to formulate it as an equation though. Okay. So I want to put the number, and then I want to put a plus sign, and then I want to put the other number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put quotes, and I'm going to put the plus sign in there, because I want to put a space so that the equation looks like it's spread out a little bit. So this is going to give me the number, like I got 8, for example, 8 plus, and then I want it to say 5. Okay. So then I'm going to put this string is what I want to display to help with the equation. And then I want to put num2, so it puts 8 plus 5. And then I want to put the equals in there, you know, to make it look nicer. So then I'll put an equals, and I'm going to put space to make it look nice. So let's see, quotes, double quotes, and then the equal sign, and you can put space with before and after, so that in your equation it has space. Okay. Now, if you want to put like a question mark, so they know they're supposed to type something. Or you can put like what is, and then put the equation, so they know they're supposed to answer it. And so see how that looks. See if that looks good, and you like it. Go ahead and put the semicolon whenever you're done. However you want to reword this, let's go ahead and run it and see what it looks like. So does that look good? Does that look like you're supposed to type something? I didn't do the CN yet, so it doesn't let me type. But does that equation look good? If you don't like it, you can put what is and put like, you know, whatever you want to put, question mark or enter answer or something, you know, there to let them know they're supposed to be entering the answer to that question. So the whole thing behind it is we're going to display the equation, let them answer it, and then we're going to tell them the right answer. Okay. But, you know, they get to answer it, think about it before they see the right answer. So they won't get the right answer until they click enter with their answer. Okay. And we don't really have to write their answer again if you don't want to, because they are going to type it. If you just want to display the correct answer, that's fine. Or if you want to write in paragraph form, like you answered this and the right answer is this, however you want to do it, it's fine. But is everybody good so far? Okay, we need to do input. In order to get the correct answer, we're going to need an equation, and I would like to save it in a variable called answer, since that's the right answer, or correct answer, or right answer. But I need to differentiate because I'm going to have two answers. One's going to be the user's answer, and one's going to be the right answer. So I can't call them both answer because that would be confusing. So I need to differentiate between which one's the user answer and which one's the right answer. Okay, so I can call the right one just answer, and the other one user answer, if that makes sense. or you can call it user answer, right answer, if you want to really differentiate between the two. But you have to have two different names, okay? Because we are going to do the equation and figure out the right answer. But right now I'm just trying to take in their answer, okay? So I am going to create a variable, and I could create it right here, right before I'm going to use it. You don't have to put all the variables at the top. As long as you put them before you use them, you're okay. So if it makes sense to just do it right here before you're going to use it, their answer, since we're working with integers, it's going to be an integer. So we can say int, and again, you can call it user answer if you want. Now, typically, we will capitalize the A in answer if it's two separate words, so you can see the difference between the words and not put spaces. You can put underscore if you want, but typically we just push the words together. But the reason why I didn't just say answer is because I want to use the answer for my other variable. So I wanted to make it something different that stands out, that this is what the user gave. And it might not be the right answer. That's just their answer. Okay. So then I'm going to take in the user answer now that I have the variable. So I gave them the equation, and hopefully the question mark is enough that they know they're supposed to type in the answer. And then it's going to take it in with this. Now this could be up there if you don't like it down there. It just has to be before you take it in. Like you can't do the C in until you define the variable that you're going to put it into. So it's fine to leave it like that if that's okay with all of you. And now you can just see if it works and if the spacing looks okay. So I give my little blinky cursor, and I did put a little space here, so my number will go after the question mark. If you don't like it right up against the question mark, make sure you add that extra space. Or you can, say enter answer or something like that. But just so that they know that they're supposed to be entering the answer. And then, of course, I didn't print the answer, so we have to do that next. Okay, so then before I print the answer, I need to know what the answer is, right? So display the correct answer. And again, really, I don't know if you need to display the user answer because we just did that. So I think we could probably take that off now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know if you need to repeat that. So display the correct answer. So you can just do the correct answer right inside your cout statement, or you can put it in a variable and then print it out, whatever way makes more sense to you. Some people don't like to do equations like in their cout statement because it makes it overwhelming, but you could do it if you know how to do it and you're okay with that, that's fine. Or you could create another variable called answer and then add num1 and num2. If you are going to put it in your cout statement, then you could just use the other one as answer instead of user answer if you're only going to have one variable. Okay. And then I just want to print what the actual answer is. Okay. So we do something like the answer is, I don't want to say should have been, assuming that they're wrong, because I can't make a decision as to whether they're right or wrong at this point. So we could just say the answer is, because we don't know if they got it right or wrong. So we'll say answer. Okay. And then they'll just have to decide if they got it right or wrong. Okay. So then if you run it, oh, what did I keep putting the arrows the wrong way? Sorry. Right. All right. So then answer, it doesn't matter what you answer because it's not going to make a decision for you. So you're going to have to make a decision as to whether it's right or wrong looking at the two numbers. So you can say, oh, I got it right, right? And then if you get it wrong, then you can say I got it wrong because you look at the two numbers. You have to do the comparison yourself. But in the future, when we get to the decision-making part, we will have the computer decide and say like, oh, you got it right, congratulations, right? But right now you have to congratulate yourself based on whether you got it right or wrong. So run it a couple of times, see if you get different equations, see if it seems to look okay and if you got it working. And then I want to show you the other way to do the random number in case you want to change that in. We'll paste both in so you have both ways you can compare. Yes.
Question: what is the difference in art?
And what?
Art, like art, you just I know the thing is randomly biased art.
RD.
Difference between those.
I don't really use pens. I don't know why he switched. I guess it's a little cleaner than doing the equation. I don't know, then because like you're putting the numbers in. But I think it's easier to just do the equation. I don't know. All the different engines and everything. But there is a think your book tells you the way to do doubles, if you wanna do the double distribution. It might be, I think it's a real distribution, for decimals. Instead of int, and then you get decimal numbers. Okay, I'm gonna, if you wanna paste this in, so you have it, if you like this way, and then those of you that wanna use it, you're fine to use it, that's what your book uses. Don't worry about NetBeans, or not NetBeans, Notepad complaining, but go ahead and save that, and then just put a couple spaces, and then I'll show you the other way. You can choose which way works best for you, which way you like better. So if you wanna do the random, oh, and by the way, if you want to change this to make your equations more challenging, you can make that like 100 or, and then have more challenging equations. So if I make that 100, just to show you, you can get more challenging equations. So, and then you can answer whatever you want and compare the two. So you could do whatever range you want. Okay, so if you want to do the random way that I had, make sure you copy this one first. So you have that example and you can decide if you like this one. Then you don't need this random one up here, but you do need to do CSTDLIB. I think the time one's automatic. I'm gonna leave it out. I think you don't need to put time in there anymore. I think it's automatic. I'm gonna leave it and see if it complains. Okay. I think I did it the other day and I didn't need it. So what I want to do, let me take out all this. Okay. And then you do need to do like a little bit of work for this as well. But you do the srand, and then you seed it with the time. And so it'll complain here if it needs the time preprocessor, but I don't think it does. So I'm gonna see if it works without it. And then all you have to do here is, I'm gonna erase this and then I'll just use it twice. I'm gonna use the rand. If you use the rand without the srand with the seeded, then it just always generates that same number based on, like, it uses the same seed all the time. But if you seed it, the time always changes. It goes based on milliseconds, so it always changes. So it always gives you a new number. So then you'll get a new number, and then all you have to do is modulus, and then you just take. You can put it right into here. You don't have to do like we did before, like a min and a max number. You just do whatever you want your max number to be right in here. So like if you want it to be 10 or you want it to be 100, you would do that number there. -1, and then do +1. And then +1, and I'll explain in just a sec. So this number is always +1. It fixes the equation they have. But these numbers, see this, I guess it's tricky. But this number here, the 10 -1, this is the max and min right here. And then this is the min again over on the side. So if you do, most of the time we start at 1. But if you did want to start at like 5 or 50 or something else, then change that number 1 here and here, but not this one. Okay. And then change the 10 to something else. So this 10 will give you 1 through 10, but if you make it 100, 1 through 100, 1 is a typical starting point. So normally it will look. Okay. And then you can just, once you have that, you can copy it twice. But I don't know. To me, this is easier, but if it's not easier to you, you can use the other one for sure. Your book explains the other one in depth. So if this, and then it should do the same thing, hopefully. So I still did 1 through 10. And so I should still get 2 numbers that are 1 through 10. And you can put whatever you want. And then just compare your two. And then if you want to change it 1 through 100 to make it more challenging, this would just become 100. Just like the other one. It's pretty easy to change. So if you do want to change your equation again, like if you didn't want to start at 1, let's say maybe that's too easy, you want to start at 50, you would change, I'm just trying to show you how to change it. You would change this number, and you would change this number. Oh. Okay. And then you should get higher numbers if you want to make it more challenging. They could do like 50 through 100, so each of your numbers should be 50 through 100 on both sides. And then you can, we're just testing it, so you don't have to put, but you can, run it a couple times, make sure you get numbers 50 through 100. If you want to change it 75 through 200, whatever you want to do, you can change, you do 1,000 or whatever you want to do. You should be able to modify that, but you can also do that with the other one I gave you. So if you like this one, and you want, or you want to have an example, you can copy and paste it right into your notepad here, and then you have both examples, and you can decide later which one you want to use. But you have both all in one file, so you can pick. Maybe one makes more sense to you, you can go ahead and use that one. I won't be offended if you use the other one. Whatever one you like. Okay. All right, so go ahead and save everything. You can use them as examples later.